Earlier on Thursday, attack drones hit the northern Abdali crossing, causing damage but no casualties. Iraqi state media say the border was temporarily closed following the attack. The crossing is in the northern Al-Jahra province. Well, the Abdali crossing is crucial for passenger and commercial traffic. The border is an important trade corridor that links Turkey and Iraq to Gulf markets. In a moment, we'll speak with Al Jazeera's Tawhid Asadi about the situation in Tehran, and Kimberly Halkett is at the White House for us. But first, let's speak to Al Jazeera's Laura Khan, who's here for us in Doha. Laura, Kuwait's military then says that there have been further drone attacks on the Iraq-Kuwaiti border crossing again on Thursday evening. What more do we know?
Well, that's right. There were two separate attacks, only a few hours apart, one happening just past midday and the other just over 4 hours ago. There was a statement coming from the Ministry of Defence of Kuwait and essentially said there was a drone attack, this followed by a blaze in which firefighter crew had managed to contain and tackle that blaze, and then they sent ordnance crews in order to remove some of that drone debris from the area. And now this is a very important border crossing, as you have stated. There's around 200 kilometres of border between Iraq and Kuwait, and it's the only border crossing between those two countries, so also a very important commercial hub and for commercial traffic and freight going between the two of them. But this has also meant that it's been a target, and it's certainly not the first time it's been targeted. Last Friday, it was also under a drone attack, and also in April, as from the previous escalation with Iran from February, March and April, that was spilling out into the Gulf, and that again was attacked. So it has been a serious flashpoint, and as I say, because of where it's kind of located geographically as well. However, the army didn't state exactly who had attacked. They did say there are no casualties or injuries, but there is certainly some material damage there.
Thursday, Laura, was yet another day of attacks across the Gulf. Tell us more.
Yeah, around 10 hours ago, there were attacks over Bahrain. Now, they have been sending out these warning systems to the general public to take shelter when they're taking place. And essentially, they're saying that they are intercepting these missiles in the sky above. So essentially, they're reassuring the public that they are taking control of the situation with their multi-layered defense systems. Same happened in Jordan. A number of missiles and also drones overhead. They were intercepted, but Kuwait has been seemingly the heaviest attacked. Now, Iranian media did put out a statement earlier saying that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards had attacked the Ali al-Salam base, which is about 50 kilometres away from Kuwait City. That's the capital of Kuwait. Now, it was a joint air base also with the US. So they said that they had attacked that, but they'd also attacked 3 other military bases throughout the day, including hangars, helicopters and a telecommunications centre. However, the Kuwaiti government haven't confirmed this has happened, but the Gulf Cooperation Council has put out a statement saying, no, that also been attacking civilian infrastructure in the latest round of escalations.
Al Jazeera's Laura Khan reporting live from Doha. Laura, many thanks indeed. Well, earlier, Iran said that 2 people were killed in a US missile attack near its Shalamcheh border crossing with Iraq. Local authorities say the strike hit close to a passenger terminal. The crossing is a vital corridor for trade and for pilgrims visiting holy sites in Iraq. Thousands of people use the crossing every day. Explosions were reported in the Iranian cities of Bushehr, Avaz, Jask and Sirik near the Strait of Hormuz. There are also reports an oil tanker came under fire in the waterway. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says that no vessel will pass through the strait without Iranian permission. Iraq's newly appointed Prime Minister is in Iran on an official visit. Ali al-Zaidi met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian at Sadabad Palace in Tehran. Iraqi media reports that the talks will focus on regional security, trade and energy supplies. The visit comes just days after the Prime Minister's first official trip to the United States. Let's go live now to Tehran. Al Jazeera's Tawhid Asadi is with us from there. Tawhid, any Real hope of any diplomatic solution coming out of Tehran?
Well, indeed, rather than being too optimistic or too pessimistic, Iranian officials are practicing a sort of realistic and I would say pragmatic approach when it comes to the potentiality for diplomatic settlement. And that's why we hear a twofold message from Tehran saying that in both cases of confrontational scenario or diplomatic engagement, there is this full preparation, even though over the past few days following the initiation of this new round of escalation, there is less talk about negotiations, more talk about the potentiality for further confrontation on the horizon. And we hear from the army of the country, the officials, the military officials saying that there is readiness in case of the continuation of the American attacks, particularly to the infrastructure of the country, to respond, and the retaliation is going to be more crushing. As Laura was mentioning earlier, Iran is also talking about retaliatory strikes targeting U.S. military bases across the region, while I would say on a nightly basis we have been witnessing the continued campaign of airstrikes by the Americans targeting the southern coast of the country. But speaking of diplomacy, we know that the situation is engulfed by a mistrust in Tehran pertaining to any rapprochement towards the United States, as they said that they were in the middle of negotiations not once but twice while they faced this unprecedented campaign of airstrikes. There is hope, however slim, that at the end of the day a diplomatic solution can pave the way for a long-lasting peace. However, what we hear at this moment from Tehran is more on the basis of potentiality for confrontational scenarios on the horizon.
Tawhid Asadi reporting live from Tehran. Tawhid, many thanks indeed. The US says that it will continue to target Iran until Tehran agrees to a deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that Iran wants a deal but isn't ready to reach an agreement. He also accused Tehran of pressuring Yemen's Ansarullah Houthis into targeting ships in the Red Sea.
Iran is begging us, okay, both directly and indirectly, let's do a deal, let's talk. Iran is begging every day. The problem with Iran is every time they make a deal, the people that are in charge there, they either break it or they want to change it. So it looks like they're not ready to make a deal. So they're going to continue to pay a price. And every night the price gets higher and higher and higher. And that's what's happening now.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump says that Washington won't ease its pressure on Iran until it abandons any path to a nuclear weapon.
We're doing very well against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're doing extremely well. They would like to do something, but I say they're not ready yet. They need more of the same. They're not ready yet. They got some evil intentions. We cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. If we did all this that I'm talking about your data centers, isn't that important? When they start blowing away communities one by one, we cannot let them ever even think about having a nuclear weapon, and that's exactly what's happening. They'll never have a nuclear weapon.
Live now to Washington at our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, talk of peace, but troops building up in the region. What should we read into what's coming out of the Trump administration right now?
Well, the signals seem to be pointing to escalation to forced negotiation. A U.S. official telling me just moments ago that right now talks are continuing, but the president also has all cards and options at his disposal. And it is being reported here in the United States that the U.S. president is close to a decision on whether or not to launch a so-called massive attack, and that the military preparations, as you alluded to, are in place. Now, as we've heard from the Secretary of State and the U.S. president in the last day or so, there is also signals of severe retaliation doctrine that is now in place. Both officials have said it's no longer an eye for eye, but as Marco Rubio said, it is now when Iran strikes ahead for an eye. In other words, indicating some sort of massive response by the United States. And as you played just moments ago, the U.S. president has signaled that he believes Iran wants to make a deal, but isn't ready just yet. So it does appear that the U.S. president, along with his aides and advisors, believes the fastest way to negotiation and a negotiated settlement is massive pressure on Iran.
Our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett reporting live there from Washington. Kimberly, many thanks. Doug Bandow is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us again, Doug. After nearly 2 weeks of renewed strikes, what has Washington achieved? Has it changed Iran's behaviour? It doesn't seem to have done so, or simply reinforced Tehran's belief that it needs leverage over the Strait of Hormuz?
No, unfortunately, the administration has no strategy other than to simply bomb, and if the bombing fails, to bomb again, and if that fails, to bomb again. You know, Iran has demonstrated that it was prepared for this. It's turned out to be far more resilient than any of the American commanders or president and political leaders thought. And the more the U.S. bombs, the more it convinces Iran that they have to hang tough, that they recognize, you know, this administration last year and this year, in the middle of negotiations, started wars with them. So unfortunately, Iran has very little confidence. You know, the president says they want a deal, but of course, he's said that almost every day since he started the war in February, that they want a deal. And the question is, are they prepared to make a deal, but is he prepared to make a deal? And unfortunately, today, he seems convinced that he can do better if he keeps bombing. But if the Iranians retaliate against the Gulf countries, the partners of the United States, the U.S. will pay a very heavy price, as well as Iran paying a heavy price. And he has to take that into account.
And Doug, the Ansarullah Houthis have opened a second maritime front in the Red Sea. Does that fundamentally change America's priorities or simply stretch them further?
Well, it really stretches them further. I mean, it's not clear to me that, in fact, Iran necessarily wanted the Houthis to target Saudi Arabia. Iran could have done so if it wanted to take out the pipelines. It seems to have gone rather easy on Saudi Arabia compared to, say, the Emirates or certainly Kuwait and Bahrain. But the U.S. Spent last year much of it at war with the Houthis and had a very difficult time. So, and the U.S. is running very low on missiles. So it's hard for the United States to take on yet another conflict, go after the Houthis hard, while they're trying to go after Iran hard. So this, I think, poses a significant problem. If it shuts off Saudi oil, it puts more pressure on the oil market. It puts pressure on President Trump. And so far, the U.S., while achieving success in the sense of blowing up things, has yet to achieve a political end that it wants, which is to bring Iran to terms.
And on that point, oil continues to climb, shipping being rerouted, strategic reserves under pressure. At what point does the economic cost begin to shape military decision-making?
Well, President Trump, a month or so ago, said he didn't want to be President Herbert Hoover. Hoover was the man who was president in the U.S. when the Great Depression hit about a century ago. Trump understands that he has the potential to wreck not only oil markets, but the international economy. He is now trying to say it's all about nuclear weapons, but last year he told us that he obliterated the Libyan plan, or the Iranian program. And a month or so ago, he was saying we probably don't need to get the nuclear dust that they have. They can't make a nuke if we won't let them. So it looks to me like he recognizes he's failed on the Strait of Hormuz. It's still closed. It wasn't before he started the war. So he's trying to make the claim this is all about nuclear weapons. But I don't think the American people are buying that. And if the international economy crashes, it'll be a disaster for not only other countries, but for the United States and the Gulf countries.
Pakistan and Qatar are again trying to revive diplomacy. Is there, Doug, still a deal to be done, or have both sides become too invested now in military pressure?
Well, both sides have an incentive to make a deal. Iran has suffered substantial damage, not only to its military assets, but its energy assets, civilian infrastructure. It's wrecked the economy. They need a deal. They need to recover. President Trump needs to get out of this. He's got himself in a losing situation. Told the American people it'd be a few days. He said they would surrender. They'd even ask him to choose their leader. He's failed, and the American people perceive that. So both sides have that incentive. they both have to be willing to stop and acknowledge they will not be seen as the total winners. Both of them want to be seen as the winners. They have to accept this is going to be a compromise. Both sides are going to have to back down to some degree.
Doug, always good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed for being with us.
Thank you.
As you saw, global oil prices have climbed back above $100 a barrel for the first time since May. Before the war, Brent crude traded at around $72 a barrel, with Gulf exports flowing normally. At the war's peak, Brent surged to more than $120 a barrel, the sharpest wartime rise in more than 30 years, as Qatar halted LNG output and hundreds of tankers were stranded in the Gulf. On June 17th, the US and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude fell to around $80 a barrel. Then in July, as fighting resumed in the region, Brent crude climbed again, now reaching just over $100 a barrel. Meanwhile, there's been international condemnation of Yemen's Ansarullah Houthis attacking Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. Qatar and France are among the countries that have denounced the strikes. Earlier, the Houthis said that they'd targeted 2 Saudi tankers around 130 kilometres off the Saudi coast. They say the ships were violating their naval blockade on Saudi Arabia. The Houthis say they used cruise missiles and drones to target the ships, causing fires on board. Maritime officials say that there have been no reports of casualties.